diffusion accompanied it. The mission churches often went abandoned, and the people were left without priests. And so religion devolved into a creed that had a lot of superstitions to it. So that's a bit of a background. Continuing on then, in 1821, Mexico regained its independence and the trade lanes finally opened. Well, the US government saw that this was an economy that was deserving of capturing. And within 25 years, they had annexed Texas. The Mexicans, of course, objected. That led to the Mexican-American War. And that is what gave us the entire American Southwest.
So Pat or Eileen, you're going to have to make sure you can advance the slides before Steve leaves. We're all seeing the slides now.
Yes.
But make sure you can advance them yourself. He should have given you permission to do that. So just page down and just make sure, either Eileen or Pat, whoever, just page down and make sure you can advance the slides.
Yes, I can.
Okay.
Perfect. You're in
Good.
shape.
Thank
So
you, Steve.
Go back to the beginning of
So what you have seen first on screen after the map was that building, which is the Palace of the Governors, in that famous tan that accompanies all of the adobe buildings. This right now, we are in the plaza. The entire center is a park, and it is rimmed on 3 sides by public buildings. The 4th side is an Indian market that stretches the entire length of that plaza and does a brisk business each day. So the commerce had developed, and it led to something called the Old Santa Fe Trail. Is that something you would like to add to, Pat?
There's the Santa Fe Trail. Eileen, while I'm doing that, can you see if somebody's waiting to be let in? Karen said she's waiting.
I do not have.
I'm here, Pat.
Oh, you're there. Okay, yay. Okay, we're good.
Thank you.
Okay, let's go. Now we're charging ahead. Thank you all for your patience. I love you guys for waiting. Thank you. Okay.
Very interactive meeting.
So we're on the Santa Fe Trail, and why is there a Santa Fe Trail? Well, goods needed to be moved from the east to the west, basically from Missouri out to Santa Fe and across the Great Plains. And goods were moved by these long wagon trains, and mostly they brought manufactured goods from the east to the west. And what went back the other way? Well, furs, gold and silver, even burros were sent back east. And so I wanted to show you, now we don't need burros. We had a train that operated in between, but now when people are driving, I just wanted to show you a typical license plate. I'm sorry it's a little blurry, but this is a New Mexico license plate, and New Mexico is the only state that has USA after New Mexico, and I bet you know why. There is a lot of misunderstanding, people thinking that New Mexico was not part of the United States, that it was part of Mexico. In fact, there were funny stories that caused people to decide in New Mexico they better put USA on the license plate. One of them is that people would go to buy a ticket from the airline and would be told if they wanted to go to New Mexico, they'd need to bring a passport. And sometimes the mail, the post office tried to charge them international rates in order to send something to New Mexico.
So much for geography in the classroom, right?
All right.
So, there is a very evocative picture. Northern New Mexico is known in legend as having these high energies which demonstrate themselves in nature. It is a kind of swirl of geology, nature, and some would say native spirits. So we encountered these native spirits quite early on our cab ride out of the airport. We were driving along a country road to the Airbnb, and suddenly, only 30 feet ahead of us, a large boom, it was like a bomb went off, was in front of us. And one of the electrical poles had blown a fuse, apparently, and it was very, very loud and quite scary because it was almost midnight at that point. So the swirl found us early on that drive. Then Pat and I were at lunch at a restaurant in downtown Santa Fe. They had long lines, and when we were called, we had asked for a table of 2 or 4. The table for 4 came up first, and there were 2 other ladies on the waiting line, and we said, look, we've got 2 extra spaces, come on and sit with us. So they joined us, and in the conversation, we asked where did they come from, and it turns out that they came from Indiana, which is where Pat came from. Pat, do you want to share what happened next?
Well, I said, oh, where? And she said, Hammond. I said, oh, where did you go to high school? We went to the same high school. It was just crazy. It was unbelievable. This was one of so many things that happened in Santa Fe.
Then a few days later, we were at a museum. We were about the last people out, and there was a man and his teenage daughter getting ready to take their bicycles off to their lodging. And we engaged them in chit chat, and they were interesting, and we kept talking. And it turned out that he was he chased energy fields. And we mentioned that we had one that he might like to see because the Airbnb proprietor had told us that they had in an adjoining cabin, strange things were going on. Things were flying across the room, large things. And we thought, poltergeists. So the man said he would love to see that, and he went out the next morning, and he said that a Mexican family had been murdered on that spot. No, who knows? But anyway, it was another episode in what we call woo-woo. So the final woo-woo came as we were finishing dinner in Santa Fe one evening. Lovely hotel, but you couldn't see outside from where we were. And when we emerged, it was pouring rain, just pouring. So we got in our car and we started off, and we couldn't even see the road signs because the rain was so thick. We made some wrong turns, apparently. The GPS wasn't really working. We finally found our way onto the old Santa Fe Trail, which was our ticket home. And the rain continued. And as I was cresting a hill, I was in the driver's seat, we looked down and there was like a river in front of us. And I had only a split second to react. What am I going to do? And I decided that the rain hadn't been there long enough. I was going to plow through. I gunned it, and we did get to the other side. It was another harrowing adventure with the sharp turns that we had to make up a very tough hill, but we finally got in, and we we just breathed a sigh of relief. That was woo-woo.
And the rainbow always came out. But that, I don't think that was the last story of these crazy adventures. I want to introduce you to, we decided we wanted to have a session with a shaman, and there are quite a few, and one shaman was not available, so she recommended Michelle. And Michelle was delightful and shared quite a bit with us. We had so much to learn from her, and we didn't have enough time for it. But she talked about at first about soul retrieval and how we have to connect with our ancestors. It was interesting. She said that the Hopis here and the shamans in Peru concur that we're about to enter the 5th age of man, the world of illumination. And part of this world is the rebirth of the divine feminine, which came to be a theme throughout this trip as well. So when she asked us all to be co-creators of our own harmony with all sentient beings. Sentient, there's that word we learned at the monastery in Nepal, sentient beings. So we told her this sounds a lot like mindfulness. And she said, yes. She said, I help people get out of the do mode and connect with their deeper selves. So this was all valuable for us. She talked about how we could reach deep states of mind, of opening up with prayer, with singing, with nature, with dreams, even with lovemaking. It was just such a lovely thought. And she has some things in her book, and I'm going to show it to you because I think it's, I've read most of her book. It's quite deep. Journey to the Fifth World. She talks about when mystical synchronistic experiences happen. Do you ever have something that hits you that's just such a fundamental truth that almost moves you to tears? She said it's a real mystical experience. It's just like liquid grace. So I just wanted to share that with you. And I want to tell you then about the next. Why do I have trouble moving the picture? Okay. The next, I'll tell you about her later. Eileen has a story here.
Shall I go ahead and tell the story?
Sure.
Okay. We are at the hotel in Santa Fe called La Posada. Santa Fe has many wonderful hotels, 4-star hotels, but there is only one La Posada. The lady that you see on the screen here is named Susan, what is her last name?
Oh, Sarah Eystone.
Sarah Eystone, thank you.
Yeah.
And Sarah is the art curator at La Posada. I think it may be the only hotel in the country with its own art curator. She has a mission to fill its public spaces with amazing art for sale at studio prices. She also gives art lectures and art tours of the property. And Sarah was the one who introduced us to something that we hadn't planned on seeing, a place called Chimayo. Chimayo was about an hour north, slightly east of Santa Fe. And we had to drive through some green valleys and hills, which was nice relief from the brown we'd been seeing. It was off the beaten path. It is now a National Historic Landmark. And it's famous because of a story. So back in 1810, there was a villager who was walking around close to midnight, and he saw a light and he followed it. And he found a half-buried crucifix in the ground. And he picked it up and tried to bring it off to another place to show his friends. But it disappeared and was found back at the place where it had been discovered the next night. Twice he tried to move it, and twice it returned. So this they took as a sign that there was to be a chapel built on the site, and that is what came to be known as Chimayo. There is a room there called the Milagros Room, and it is filled with crutches and discarded items that miracles have brought, freeing people from their disabilities.
And there's a pit in there with some kind of looks like dark, dirty sand. It's the holy dirt. And people have come from all over to scoop up some holy dirt, and we felt we had to do the same.
And the reason that Sarah was telling us this story is because of another story. There was a lady, a housekeeper who worked there.
Oh, yeah.
One day, the hotel received a call from a man who had been diagnosed with terminal cancer. He was living in Australia, but his son was in Santa Fe, and his son persuaded the man to come and live with him during the remainder of his life. And so he moved in, but the family there worked, and so he was alone during the day, and he wanted to do something. So he called up the hotel and he said, "I'll do anything. Please find a place for me to work at your hotel." And so he did. And that's how he came to meet the housekeeper. And she was a devout Christian who had beliefs in the miracles that had been performed at Chimayo. And she urged him to come with her to receive some holy dirt. So he assented, and he took the dirt, and he went back that night and washed himself in the bathtub and scrubbed himself with the dirt. Anyway, he was scheduled to go down to Houston to have major cancer surgery, and he flew down. He was prepped. The doctors opened him up, and then they stared at each other because there was no cancer. So that was the story, the most recent story of a miracle at Chimayo. Well, after we'd found the pit of holy dirt and scooped up some for us, we went through a door and we found ourselves at the front of this altar. We had come into the church the wrong way. I was a bit abashed, and I was heading for a pew when I looked around at Pat and I said, "What are you doing?"
Well, I had to put my hands on the tile floor. The room, I swear, was abuzz with something. It's like the air was thick and the room was abuzz, like as if it were tiny angels just all crowded all around me. And so I was feeling the floor to see if there was some electricity, some loose wires that were sending electricity into the air. It was so strange. And there wasn't any. And the floor was just a tile floor. And so I just sat in the pew with this lovely buzz happily wrapped around me.
I didn't tell you all that Pat is what we call a sensitive. So she has these moments, and she's real.
Eileen puts up with it, and she keeps me from talking about them, too many of them all the time. Not everybody likes to go there, but I like it. So I want to say that some of the most wonderful connections that we made in Santa Fe were thanks to a fellow Rotarian. We're both Rotarians. Eileen's president of the Great Falls Club, and I'm past president of the Herndon Club. We love our Rotary Service Club, and the international conference is going on online right now. But I had called Rotary down there, which is a wonderful thing to do when you're part of an international organization, to call Rotary locally, and I called several clubs, and they all said, "Oh, not my club, but in another club, there's a woman named Pat Murray. She's lived here all her life. She knows everyone, and she will get you into the tour, the backroom tours. So call her." So we called her, and she introduced us to all the experts we wanted to meet, and even some we didn't know we would meet. One of them was Connie Sosi Goswan.
Connie was an Indian living in a suburban house in Santa Fe. And she had a lot of talent. At one point, as a young woman, she had joined up with people and had toured around the world, singing and dancing her way across the globe. But that's not why she's really famous. Connie is one of the international artists specializing in jewelry. And she has a very interesting background. Her one parent was Pueblo and the other was Navajo. And she spent her childhood summers on the Navajo reservation. And there was a lot of work to do and not much arranged entertainment. So she would sometimes go out into the fields, and she would start to beat on rocks to see what shape would emerge from them. And this became part of the way that she responds to nature in the creation of her jewelry.
This is one piece Eileen loved. She called it, what did you call it? A beautiful
Squash blossom?
It's like a little purse.
Yes, a little purse. The studio that she has beautiful works in it. She likes to use gold and turquoise and silver. And she went to Scandinavia at one point and loved the simplicity of their art. And so she has incorporated that along with the symbologies. You'll see the lines in the artwork that are from her native Indian culture.
Not only do Connie and her 3 sons all do different kinds of work, but all with beautiful silver and gold and the turquoise and coral, but she also teaches. And she mentioned a couple of things that really resonated with us. She said, when my students ask me, where do I get some creativity? She says, go out in the field and find your own creativity. And I want to tell you that she also said that there are people that try to copy what they do. And she tells them that copying is a form of flattery.
That might be a good, yeah.
So don't worry about it. I just want to throw in one more thing. Connie's daughter, Hasba, is actually here in Washington at the Smithsonian, at the National Museum of the American Indian. So she's a museum specialist, so we still have to get down and meet her. Okay. All right, Eileen, here we go.
Well, it looks like we're going off to our day with the Indians. So we had wanted to see them in one of their festival days. A lot of the 20 tribes of Pueblo have a celebratory day sometime during the summer. So we were fortunate enough to find one. And this was the Santo Domingo Pueblo. They've renamed themselves as Kewa, K-E-W-A now. But they are the most conservative of the 20 Pueblo tribes. They're the only ones that do not have a casino. And I wanted to just say that the name Pueblo, which we use throwing around all the time, this was interesting. Pueblo is a Navajo name, and it translates to ancient enemy. So the Pueblos don't really use the name Pueblo.
That's an old time picture of the Pueblo. We went there, we were instructed to leave our cameras and our cell phones in the car, not allowed, no pictures are allowed, no pictures of people, we were not allowed to talk to the people. So it's a very sacred ceremony that we were invited to witness. So I have pictures from other Pueblos here that I wanted to show you, but I'll tell you what we saw. We saw enormous bands of dancers preceded by the old men coming out chanting and drumming, probably 100 marching out from, we heard the distant drum beat, and they are approaching into this gigantic plaza, and we were sitting on the ground or wherever we could sit to watch this ceremony. And then came the dancers, and the dancers were dressed, the men were bare-chested, the women were wearing colorful tops and macrame belts and fancy tall headpieces. And they all had bells on their wrists and their ankles. And so they would, it was almost like crickets chirping in the night all together. You could hear them chirping in the rhythm to the drums and the chanters. And and I'm a dancer, so I had to see, so what kind of dance are they doing? Well, the first one was a step, hop. And then the second group that came out, another, how many, 150, would you say, Eileen?
Mm-hmm.
They had corn cobs upright on the tops of their heads, and their beautiful shiny black hair wrapped around this corn cobs. And they did a dance that was step, toe, boom, 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 with the drums booming and giving them the rhythm. It was absolutely fascinating. And there were even a band of clowns, of old guys with long gray hair and funny costumes on. It was really quite an interesting event, but it didn't end, our day there didn't end with the dances, because then afterward, everything shut down and out came the stalls and the market.
You can see them rimming the plaza here. They had all sorts of goods for sale, swords and silver and turquoise jewelry. My favorite was the drums. One of the Pueblo tribes, is it the Cochiti that have they have the patent on the drums, and we stopped by and sounded out several of the drums, and Pat finally bought one.
Yep, our daughter Erin asked for a drum, and and he also said you have to take mink oil to keep the drum head soft. Well,
So here,
go ahead.
This is going to the School for Advanced Research, which is an intersection of social sciences, humanities, and art. And you have to make an appointment. They give tours, but you have to have a reservation. And it was a fascinating exploration. The baskets that the Pueblo had used, or the Indians had used up until about 600 AD, were replaced by pottery, in which they carried their food. And they used combinations of twining and twilling and coiling with the clay, sand, and dirt to create their products. And each of the tribes had a different stylistic matter, so you could identify which tribe had made which pot. When the commerce began in the 19th century, the natives quickly caught on that the big pots weren't going to easily be taken home by the tourists, and that began the move to smaller pots. And happily, the tourists went home laden with pots.
All these pots it looked like a library set up like you'd have library books on library shelves, but it was pots categorized by tribe. And some of them were, and they were all very different. They all had their own style. The Cochiti tribe they do monsters that they call monos, which is a Spanish word for monkeys. The Hopis do the Kachina dolls that the little girls and the young brides like to collect. There's a Kiwa artist whose last name is Tenorio, and he does geometric designs, birds and flowers, and nothing ever human representation. Their tribe does not do that. The Zuni women, they make the pots, and you'll like this. The women make the pots and do all the hard work, and the men get to decorate them.
Just about the most famous artists from the Indians here were Maria Martinez and her husband Julian. They were from the San Ildefonso Pueblo. And I actually got to see their work in the Metropolitan Museum last year when an Indian exhibit was in place. They're famous for what they call black on black. And it's beautiful, beautiful work. The other tribe that I wanted to mention is the Zia Pueblo. They probably have the most famous art symbol of all, because theirs is a red sun with 4 rays, and the rays are exemplifying a compass, but also the seasons, and also a day, and also a life. And it has become the symbol on the New Mexico flag.
Yeah, I guess we have 4 seasons in our lives. So as the pots became more portable, the pottery got smaller and more playful, I think, more things that children enjoyed playing with. But I wanted to tell you that upstairs in this museum, and it's all very climate controlled, they opened some drawers and showed us beautiful Indian blankets and rugs. These blankets and rugs actually still belong to the tribes, but the museum holds them for them, and the tribes borrow them when they need them for a ceremony, and then they come back to the museum. One of the confections, that's the word I was trying to think of, that Eileen used for that little purse of silver. One of the confections that I loved was an Indian girl's puberty dress. And this puberty dress was made of fringed leather and was decorated with natural saffron and malachite, and it was fringed. And the tradition was that in the early 1900s, that the Indian girl would dance all night in this dress and eventually be guided to select her godmother.
So now we're going to change tack. We're going to the subject of food and drink. Oh, there is a Maria Martinez bowl, the black on black. Isn't that lovely?
Mm-hmm.
And there she is.
Okay.
Oh, actually, we're going to stop at Museum Hill. Okay. Museum Hill is a quartet of museums that they have placed a little bit outside the downtown. There is a folk arts museum, a history museum, an art museum, and a contemporary native arts museum. Pat loves this little boy.
Yeah, beautiful, beautiful metal sculpture.
The little Indian boy dancing.
Mm-hmm. And in the folk art museum, we love these miniatures. These are all miniature replicas, like doll houses. Apparently we missed it, but there's a big folk art fiesta, international folk art fiesta in the town of Santa Fe every year that people really rave about. And some of the objects, look at that little setting that look like a dollhouse. It's in the museum. Well, while we were in one of the museums, I had quite another moving moment, and I'm going to open my book so that I can read you something. This is okay, often the people in New Mexico are referred to as not Indians and not Native Americans, but as First Nation people. And this lovely First Nation lady's name is Roxanne Swensel. And we were going through the museum, and I came upon this poem and it grabbed me. She's actually a sculptor, but this is a poem that she wrote and gave us permission to put in the book. In the beginning, tucked in the dark womb of our mother, the urge struck us that we might venture out. At this same time, our mother tilted her bowl of life and poured us forward into our lives. Love that.
She's a lovely lady. So, all right, we're going to go drinking and eating now.
Oh.
There is a margarita. And one of the things Santa Fe is famous for is that they have a margarita trail. There are about 30 restaurants and bars that have joined this endeavor. And you have to go and get your margarita passport. And if you get 5 checks on it, you get a free t-shirt back at the visitor center. But we were more interested in the tasting experience. There you go. There's the shirt. Pat was keen on getting a shirt. So we went on a food tour, and the first bar had our guide was actually helping us understand some of the intricacies of the food and drink world in Santa Fe. The story of tequila was interesting. Apparently, it happened because the Spaniards at one point ran out of wine and brandy and looked at what the Indians were drinking. It was some kind of a blue agave drink. And they started to distill it and did it several times over. And the end result was what they came to call tequila. So it has married into the folklore of food, along with
red chilies, chili peppers. We learned, and I'm sorry I didn't know this, but green chili peppers that we buy at the store, they turn red when they ripen, but they don't stay fresh very long. And that's why you see all these ristros, all these upside down bouquets and wreaths and so on, made of the dried red chili peppers. Red chili peppers are in everything there. Yes, you and I expect them to be in the hot Mexican food, the enchiladas and so on. But in Santa Fe, they're in everything. There are margaritas with chili peppers in them. They're found in the eggs, in the soup, in the drinks. In fact, we had some soup and they said, how hot do you want your soup to be in chili pepper language? They put it in sushi. They put it in candy. They put it in Italian food. But I just love this. They told us that they got so hot that in one restaurant, they actually asked people to sign a waiver if they ordered chili hot number 1 or number 2, because they were so hot. They had to sign a waiver that you wouldn't sue the restaurant for too much heat. In fact, another thing that they said, I just remembered this, was if you go into a restaurant and the chef is in a bad mood, he's going to throw more red chili peppers in that. So you're going to suffer his anger.
Don't make the chef mad. So food and drink is a wonderful entertainment, and so is something that happens once a year in Santa Fe. They have what is called the Entrada, and this is a recreation of history when that General de Vargas that had signed the peace treaty after the killing of the 400 Spaniards, he came back into Santa Fe, and this Entrada reenacts that moment. It's been going on for hundreds of years. The townspeople vie to be the general and the members of his court. And when we were there, we found out that the town council had just banned the de Vargas aspect of the Entrada. They used to carry in a large picture of the Blessed Mother. She was called La Conquistadora, and they have renamed her Our Lady of Peace. I think this has special resonance with what's going on in America right now with the change of cultures and the way we look at others besides ourselves.
Yeah, so I had a picture of him, of de Vargas. I didn't even put him in there because he's a persona non grata. People used to want to ride that big horse and lead the Entrada into Santa Fe, but not anymore. One thing though, that the parade used to lead into the Fiestas de Santa Fe, and one of my favorite stories is this zozobra. Z-O-Z-O-B-R-A. The zozobra is like a giant 50-foot high marionette or boogeyman that is made by a service club every year. And he's called Old Man Gloom. And the reason he's called that is that everyone in town is invited to write on slips of paper their gloomy thoughts, their unhappiness, their sadness, their bad feelings and troubles, and put them on a slip of paper. And then to kick off the fiesta, the zozobra is lit and burnt, and all the pieces of paper that are thrown in the pot with the zozobra burn too. So you'll get rid of all your worries and troubles that way. This year, I'm sure he's going to actually burn online, but I'm sure he'll embody everyone will be throwing in their worries about the coronavirus.
Santa Fe is just awash in culture. We've talked about the visual arts and the culinary arts. Music is famous in Santa Fe too. The world famous Santa Fe Opera. Here is an interior glimpse. The night we went there, we got to see Puccini's Madama Butterfly. I was fascinated by the fact that each seat has a screen in front of it, and you can order up the translation in either Spanish or in English. It's the only opera hall I've ever been in that offered that. So it was a beautiful performance, of course. The next day was a Sunday, and we had plans to go out to see Los Alamos, and there's Butterfly about to die. Yeah, and there's the cathedral, which is at one end of the plaza. And we had just left church and we're heading for Los Alamos when We took a right turn.
Okay, so we went out to to get into okay. We were on a drive and we saw a sign to Los Alamos and to Bandelier National Park. And we said, "Oh, let's go there." And we hadn't planned to, but we were so glad we did. But we had to get in like a lane to get our security checked and take pictures of our driver's licenses and we had, and because Eileen likes to be the driver, I almost didn't get in because I didn't bring my driver's license with me. I had to plead and beg. So we get in and we start driving through Los Alamos, and there are signs for streets that say Bikini Atoll or Boomer Drive. And we're driving through areas and I'm worried that we're going to get into Area 51, if you know about the tales from Area 51. But no, we got all the way in and we went to Bandelier National Park. And it was a very hot day and we decided to take this loop of this walk of about a mile. Now remember, we hadn't planned to do this because we hadn't planned to hike through Rocky Park because we were coming from church, but we just took a detour. So we're going through the park and with our water bottles and hiking, and see if I have another picture in the park. Now see this rock, this kind of rock is called tuff, T-U-F-F, and it was cute because they were, we saw the guide, the park ranger talking to a family with groups of little boys, and he was asking them what they thought the rock was, and they were guessing magma, basalt, obsidian, pumice, and finally tuff. And he said, "Oh, I see you guys play Minecraft." And so they really, boys get to know their minerals. So this is this is the tuff, and inside the tuff is soft enough that the First Nation people had carved out the holes to make caves, and we wanted to climb up a ladder to look into one of the caves.
And I said somebody should take our picture, and they did. So there we are in our Sunday best. So from Bandelier, we drove on to Los Alamos. There is a modern-looking building that welcomes you called the Bradbury Museum. And inside, of course, they have the stories of the Manhattan Project. We learned about how Einstein influenced Roosevelt to launch a Manhattan Project and put General Leslie Graves in charge of it. He had just completed the building of the Pentagon on time and under budget. And so he got the job of organizing what would be a 3-place project. Washington State had a zone, and
Oak Ridge
in Tennessee, and Los Alamos. But Los Alamos is where the bombs were being built. There were strange things going on with this. It was highly, highly secret. They had a post office box in Santa Fe where any mail would have to go. Interestingly enough, the median age of the people at Los Alamos was only 29 years old. There was a story that Sarah Eystone shared with us because her family had lived there shortly after this. The men were so intent on doing their work, they would work all the time, and it was destroying the family amity. So the people in charge made a ruling that everybody had to close down at 5:30, and they weren't allowed back in until 4 in the morning. What was interesting too was that the bombs that they built, there were 2 teams working in different ways. The first group was working with gun-type fission, and that produced Little Boy, which was the bomb that was dropped on Hiroshima. But the second team was working on something completely different. It was a nuclear-type weapon, and that resulted in Fat Man, and that was the bomb that was dropped at Nagasaki. I didn't realize there were 2 kinds of bombs.
Yeah. Now that it's very much alive out there, a lot of work going on, but they're studying a sustainable future and algae used for energy and clean power sources and so on. Now we take a little Catholic trip here. Brother Don Mouton was also introduced to us by our fellow Rotarian.
And he was a wealth of information on the way that that Christianity entered into the region. He told us about the French man named Lamy, who was sent over to found churches. He was a bishop, and in fact, Willa Cather retold his story in her famous novel "Death Comes to the Archbishop." But Lamy was credited with many things involving providing education for women. This is the Loreto Chapel that he built with a staircase that is very famous. People liked to say that it was built as a miracle, but in actuality, there was a craftsman who spent several months doing it. It remains a very famous tourist site in Santa Fe.
Okay, we're going to gallop back out of town now. We haven't mentioned her, but we do feel like we need to mention Georgia O'Keeffe. We went to see where Georgia O'Keeffe lived and painted and what she was looking at when she was painting. And we decided to do that by horseback. So we got our horse, we were sized up for horses and took off, and it was, we had a guide with us, and he would show us pictures that she painted and then show us the exact landscape that she painted. It was amazing. And you know, it looks pretty in the picture, but even in person, it's even more spectacular. There's a lot that's gone out here in this ghost ranch. Her property was called the Abiquiu Ghost Ranch. A lot of movies have been shot here. One of them, you might have heard of, Indiana Jones and the Crystal Skull, and it was shot out in this area of the Abiquiu Ghost Ranch. It's just spectacular to see the views of layered mountains, of yellow cliffs and shades of purple and pinks and corals that layer the land. After our horse ride, we decided to go up to Ojo Caliente. Now, if you've been to Santa Fe, you might have been there, but Ojo Caliente is a spa with many, many pools. And we just found this was fascinating. We dipped in a number of the pools, but you really start with a mud bath. You just scoop out all this mud and put it all over yourself, and then you lie down and bake and let the mud clean your pores. And then you can clean off and then get into the Lithia pool. The Lithia pool is good for depression and digestion, like the soda pool is. And then you can get in the iron pool and walk on pebbles.
I've been in there all day.
Improve your blood.
In front of your computer all day.
But the one pool that we skipped, that apparently is also very popular, is the arsenic pool. That's supposed to be good for arthritis and ulcers, and we just said we don't have any. We don't need arsenic.
So our last stop in Santa Fe involved a morning at the Railroad District, where they have the modern art galleries. And then for the ultimate experience, we went that afternoon to the Matucci Gallery, which Sarah Eystone, the art curator, had described as one of the two best art galleries in the nation, comparable to the Walters Gallery in Baltimore. We thought it was an amazing place.
We love the gardens. Look at these sculptures. See the elephant through the trees there? And also back to the Divine Feminine. This was a beautiful sculpture. Remember how the shaman explained about rebirthing of the Divine Feminine, and a sculptor, poet wrote about women giving birth, and now we end our adventure here with another invitation to stop and have a conversation with the woman and with ourselves.
And we were introduced, oh, there's another charming, charming work. Yeah, lots of animals in stone around. So we got to know of an artist, and he was, his name is Michael Naranjo, and he had an amazing story. And to close, I'm going to just read from the book because I think it perfectly describes our experience with Michael Naranjo.
Are you eating anything? There's some sushi in there.
Yes, I'm going to read this.
And there's half of my sub.
Somebody's not muted. Sorry there.
Turkey.
Maybe Mike.
So Michael was a Native American who was rendered blind and without the use of his right hand from a lobbed grenade during his Vietnam tour.
What are you listening to?
In the
These
hospital, he
two
asked,
people, they talking about their travels, and this is Santa Fe.
could somebody mute? Thank you. So in the hospital, he asked for some clay and he began to work it with his left hand.
I'll walk with Karen in a few minutes.
40 years later, his works grace the White House, the Vatican,
You guys go for
museums
lunch?
across the world, yet he remains centered and simple. Naranjo
We're
writes,
just driving back, so we didn't know
Okay.
what. And I
Pat,
then saw,
Pat, you can mute Sharon Myers. Sharon Myers appears to be the problem.
Oh, maybe I can
Mute,
figure
just
out how to
click on
mute
the picture,
everybody.
And you
Sorry.
can mute her.
are we muted? Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Being blind makes the pace of life slower. You can't walk fast or grab for things quickly. Life is more gentle and softer, and the change brought my creative energies out.
Oops, sorry, wait a minute. Hi. Eileen.
Okay, Pat, click the
Okay, Eileen,
mouse.
you're unmuted. Sorry, Eileen.
Oh, okay.
Can you hear me?
Mhm.
Okay, did you hear me read that? Let me just describe to you what happened. Michael Naranjo was an Indian who was deeply wounded in the Vietnam War. He was blinded and had only use of his left hand. And with that, he began to work clay and became a fantastic sculptor. His works are all over the world now. They're in the Vatican and the White House. And he wanted to go to Italy, and the Italian government built a scaffold so that he could touch Michelangelo's David. I don't think stories get any better than that. So that concludes our visit to Santa Fe. And I know that we've run a little bit over, but do you have questions, anyone? We'd love to hear your experiences or your questions.
I think I can unmute everybody in a minute. I just want to say that the book's available everywhere now, and you can consult it as you plan a trip or reminisce or give it as a gift to someone special. There, I did the promo. It's available hardcover, softcover, and ebook. Now I'm going to unmute everybody if I can. I'm just learning to do this for the first time, so thank you so much for unmute all.
So
Everyone
Pat or Eileen, you can stop share by clicking in the control at the top where it says,
Okay, I think we have our new techie here.
oh, I do this all the time for Shepherd Center. So Pat, you and I had talked earlier, so yeah.
Michael, my new friend today from the Shepherd Center. Thank you so much for all your help today.
No problem. Enjoyed it. It was a great presentation.
So who else has been to Santa Fe?
I have not, but I have a cousin who used to live there.
I've been to Santa Fe because I grew up in Colorado. We used to go every summer. This is Joan.
You have everybody's video off.
Okay, I'm looking at participants.
All right, we don't have a lot of conversation going here, so I'm going to move us to the next step, and that is we told you we have a surprise, and here it is. We're going to We're going to move this to a monthly series going forward. And the next program is going to be on July 31st. And I'm going to invite Pat to tell you where we're going. Pat, are you there?
I am. I'm trying to show everyone, and I'm
Okay.
trying to. I got speaker view, but I can't figure out how to show everyone. I go to participants, Michael, if you're still there.
You gotta click on share screen if you got another presentation you want to show.
No, I want to see everyone's face.
Oh, well, you should go into gallery view at the top. So click where it says speaker view, just click gallery, just click
Yeah,
on
we're in
that.
gallery view. Yeah, we're in gallery view. I just have to unview. Oh, okay, I guess people are showing.
It should be at the top of your screen where it should just say, click on speaker view, and it should get you to gallery view.
It's the dots.
Oh, okay. Depends on your
No, I
computer.
don't need gallery view. I just need people to show their, maybe some people just don't want to show their faces.
Oh, yeah, everybody can basically click on stop video, and then they can show their faces. So at the bottom of your screen, if you're on a PC or laptop, you can click on stop video, and then it should go ahead and put your video out there if you want.
It doesn't start.
Okay, well, start video then, whatever it says, yeah. Just click on that and it'll show your picture.
It says you cannot start video because the host has stopped it.
No,
Oh,
I was able to start video, so I'm not.
Side.
there is somebody talking in the background, and
Yeah.
if you can identify yourself, it's a lady and a gentleman, and mute your computer, it would really help everybody else.
Right, thank you.
That, the other way you want to do this is you can just mute everybody again, to allow them to unmute themselves if they have a question or comment. So just mute everybody again.
Okay.
You see how to do that, participants?
Yeah.
Okay, just say mute all. All right, it's one person, looks like
Very,
Donna.
It's
is
Chris
still-
Fruit lag.
All right. Looks like you didn't mute everybody yet, Pat. You muted.
No.
You have to unmute yourself, Pat, and unmute Eileen.
Eileen's unmuted.
Yeah, Eileen's unmuted. Actually, it looks like, yeah, okay.
Pat's muted though. There we go.
There you go, Pat.
Eileen, Pat, can I tell a story about a cousin of mine who used to live out there?
yes, please.
Okay. We all grew up in the New York City area, but eventually, as we all grew up and all that, in his travels, he went out to the Southwest and fell in love with it and eventually moved out there. And the first place he used to live was Phoenix. But he is kind of an interesting character. And so he left Phoenix because, quote, there were just too many New Yorkers there, unquote, to suit him. So he moved north of Santa Fe and the mailing address was Abiquiu.
Mhm.
So anyway, was a bright guy, and he decided he would study the geology out there. So he did, and he actually wrote a couple of books that were published. And eventually, although he loved it there, he actually built a house with his wife. Can you build it out of, is it adobe?
Mhm.
Because he
Yeah.
built a house, it was a small house, but it was built out of adobe, and it was completely, completely off the grid. To his specifications, he just didn't want any of that. So it came time when we got older, he had a health issue that he said it was so remote there that his nearest neighbor was 5 miles away. And with his health condition, he was worried that if he had a problem, the medical facilities were too far away from where he lived. So he eventually moved east of Tucson for that reason. And in the meantime, tried to sell this house completely off the grid. But when he tried to do it and he advertised off the grid, when people came to see it, it was so much off the grid that they just weren't interested. So he had a hard time selling it at that point. Eventually he did, though. It was very pretty. I did see pictures of the inside of it. It wasn't very big, but it was very nice. And anyway, I lost track of him after a while, but I think he's still east of Tucson. And interestingly enough, I have a relative, I have several relatives in Italy, and these two were both in the science and geology area. And the one relative in Italy caught wind of the fact that my cousin, we have the same last name. My cousin, his name showed up because of the publication of these books, and he actually contacted him, on the other side of the Atlantic. And so we just sort of, I'd already been in touch with that relative in Italy, and I said to him, "That's my cousin." So anyway, we sort of keep in touch via Facebook and other means. Although my cousin out in Santa Fe in east of Tucson now, is kind of a quiet individual, so we haven't heard from him in a while. But anyway, that's my family tale.
Oh, that's a good story. Thanks, Karen.
Now, if I can ask you a question, I had to get up and I lost a couple minutes of your speech right at the point where it was, let's see, you had gone into a room and then there was a noise or a tale of large objects flying around in the next room. And then something about there was a family that had been killed there, and I missed that whole story. So could you maybe just repeat it quickly? I didn't want to miss anything.
Just about that long, actually. We met a man and his teenage daughter at a museum at the end of the day, and he described that he was working in the fields of energy, and we said that the B&B house that we had, one of the cabins seemed to have some issues. Things were flying around, large things. And this fascinated him, so we put them in touch with each other, and he went out the next morning and said that, in his opinion, a Spanish family had lived there and had been murdered.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that may explain that then.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow, that's quite a story. Thanks.
I'd like to share something.
Hi, Joan.
This is Joan. Well, growing up in Colorado, we used to go to Santa Fe all the time. And one year we went down for Christmas, and they were having a Christmas parade, and all the Indians were, there. None of them had shoes. It was winter. And we were just, as kids, we were just shocked. We were so surprised, but it was quite an experience to see. The other thing that we did as an adult, when I went with my husband, we went to, I couldn't afford one of, some of paintings. So we went to Jackalope, and I bought Jackalope, and I bought a steer head, and so we have that hanging in our house. That's my, and then I have a lot of other pictures from Santa Fe, because I used to spend a lot of time down there.
Oh, yeah, some people have been to Taos, which is the real center for art and for skiing, and it's not too far from Albuquerque either. Yeah, it's and not far from Arizona, from the vortexes that some people experience there too. Who else has a story?
Well, I just changed my background to show you my son's living room. He lives in Santa Fe.
It looks very Santa Fe-ish.
I know, isn't it beautiful? I love his fireplace there.
Very nice.
Yes.
We visit there quite often every year, except we're not going this year, but it's a beautiful place. And our daughter lives in Los Alamos. Her husband works at the lab. And,
Oh, okay.
And it's just, you did a wonderful job. We have been twice to the International Folk Art Festival, and it is a wonderful place. That's where I buy my hats from Colombia. I just love the vendor who has the hats. Evidently the women gather the reeds and everything and weave it, and then the men sew the hats. I thought that they get the easy job. But it is a very nice, well-organized festival. It's usually, I think, around the last of July, somewhere in that time frame, if I remember.
Mhm.
And last year we had the opportunity to house sit and cat sit for my husband's employer. And they live off of St. Francis Drive, south, and we would, on 2.5 acres, they had well water. It just felt like at home because we have well water and septic and everything here where we live in Great Falls. And, you know, you'd hear chickens and the thunderstorms we experienced out there. It was just, you know, beautiful to go out on their upstairs balcony and take, you know, 185-degree pictures of the morning and walk down the dirt road to a arroyo and go for miles. But it is a beautiful place to live, I think, and visit. And the margaritas are really terrific.
We found that out.
That's right. And thank you very much. We really enjoyed your presentations.
Thank
Very
you.
nice.
Thanks. I lost my two techies in one day. Thank you, Michael. And
Mary, if you have a question, Mary, you got to unmute yourself. You got to unmute.
I have a question, and does it say Mary? I'm Sheila.
Oh, I see one Mary.
That's
just
okay.
unmuted.
That I'm Mary Sheila, but that's a whole long
Oh,
story.
okay. Well,
But
Hi,
did
Sheila.
you run into Glenna Goodacre's architecture? Sculpture, I mean, sculpture. She's the gal that did the nurses at the Vietnam Memorial, and she did the dollar coin.
Right.
Okay, the First Nation Indian girl on the coin, and she just passed away. And I have a sculpture of hers. When you play bridge at my house, you'll see it when you walk in the house. She did a huge memorial to the Irish and up in Pennsylvania, up in Philadelphia, and she's phenomenal.
Oh,
You
good.
didn't run into her there at all? You didn't run into her at all there?
We heard the story. I think she might have been in the Matucci Gallery, but I can't remember. I do remember hearing this story.
A couple of the sculptures that you showed, I kept thinking, oh, they're going to say Glenna Goodacre.
That's who it is. Yes, it is Glenna. The woman and child sculpture is hers.
I thought so. I thought so. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. She's a great, she was a good lady.
Yeah.
And she had a lot of that spiritualness, Pat. In fact, I'm getting chills talking about it. Yeah.
I believe that she is ranked as the finest woman sculptor in our country.
I wouldn't be surprised. I wouldn't be surprised. You know, once you get a sculpture in DC, you get.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that, Sheila.
Mary, it looks like you had some comment.
I have been waiting patiently. But this
Mary
was wonderful because I love New Mexico. I had a hard.
We've lost you.
Mary, you're going in and out. You're out right now.
Looks like your internet connection may have frozen. I mean,
Now, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, we can't see you move, but we can hear you.
I don't think so.
just
Here.
Yeah.
You can hear me now?
yes,
You can hear me now? Good.
yes.
Okay. I had a hard time convincing my husband to go to New Mexico because he's an Easterner. But we have friends, a number of friends who've sort of migrated there. And so the last ones we went to visit were from DC, and that's where we met them. And we had, they had been there for years and years, but he went to work in the lab. And they eventually bought the CEO's home of the lab. And there are evidently 5 fingers of land that go out into the huge canyon in one part of Los Alamos. And they are on the last finger at the very tip, overlooking this incredible canyon view. So it's very special to visit them, and I'm hoping we actually Zoom with them once a month. Hoping we'll be able to go and see them again soon.
Oh, sounds wonderful.
It was beautiful.
Close to where you were.
It's about an hour and 15 minutes.
Over at Christ the King Church, we have a couple of pictures from there because one of our former members who actually he died about 8 years ago, Carlton Ruthling, has a twin brother whose name is Ford. So right there, he had to be an artist, right? Is Ford Ruthling. And he's done a lot of really beautiful natural, they're nature pictures, but they're more symbolic, and it has the Indian, flavor to them, etc. If you ever get a chance, there's one of a butterfly, and one of the wings of the butterfly looks like a butterfly, and the other one has all the symbols on it instead. That's hanging in the old kitchen room at the church.
Huh.
Ooh.
Check that out sometime. So Pat, are you going to tell us where our next program is?
Oh, I heard you talking while I was pushing buttons. Yes, we're going across the Pacific Ocean and landing into one of the largest collections of islands in our globe, in Polynesia. We're going to Polynesia, we're going to Bora Bora, we're going to Tahiti, we're going to Moorea, we're going to Taha, we're going to a number of islands. And we're not going by cruise ship, but that's how most people go. We're once again bareboating. And so we have friends that we went with who are the same age as our daughter. And they chartered a boat and let us be the parents on board and brought some of their friends. We didn't have a captain, they captained it. And so we went to the same places that the cruise ships go, but we were on our own schedule. And there are incredible pictures and a lot of stories to tell, including how my husband learned to sail without using charts, but using young Ryan's iPad instead. So anyway, there are, I think you're going to really enjoy it. So we're going to do it the last Friday of July, Friday night, the 30th.
31st, July 31st.
And it won't be 5:30. You'll get to have dinner early and join us at 6:30 because that works for young Ryan and his wife Liz, and we'll talk about the trip that we did together.
Sounds great.
I want to thank you all for being with us tonight. I want to thank our sponsor, Andrea Savage of Unique Travel Events. And I want to thank especially all of you for being with us. It's a joy to have an opportunity to travel vicariously with all of our good friends, and you are they. So
it is a
thank you
joy
for being with us tonight. And we will see you
That was great.
on July 31st. Have a
Good week.
Thank you.
Keep safe.
Thank you.
Thank you. It's an honor
Pat
to
and Eileen,
join.
yeah. Pat and Eileen and Steve, while you're still on,
Yes.
when I tried to get on tonight, the information you had sent me kept sending me to Peru on June 19th, and of course, it wouldn't open up.
Right.
I
had the same experience.
Did you get
20 minutes I spent in Peru.
Yeah, sorry, that's my mistake. I'm stumbling through everything myself today, and it had the right information, but it had a title for Peru. So, and then I sent another email that said that should have been titled Santa Fe. So I'm learning.
So Pat, do we have to re-register for Polynesia, or you just take the list of people that you have for tonight and just send another link?
Yeah, we have a list of several hundred people that will, once they receive an invitation, stay on our MailChimp list, and we'll receive every other invitation in the future.
Okay.
Is
So
that,
where do we sign up to go bear boating with you to Polynesia?
let's go again.
Follow the link.
Bill knows how to sail.
Well, I know we've had a lot of people say, so Pat and Eileen, where's your next trip? We want to come with you. And someone wants to be the photographer. And now, and I'm gonna rely on Michael to be with us next time.
Yeah, I'll plan to be on it, and I just hope you get a chance to talk to Eileen, and we can finalize a couple dates for Shepherd Center in the fall. And
We're
obviously,
so excited about that, Michael.
well, that's great. Yeah, I mean, I know our people in Shepherd Center will really enjoy it, and Santa Fe was perfect, and I'm sure if you can do Spain also, that would be fantastic.
Yeah, so we're going to do Santa Fe and Camino in Spain again. So we've had practice with that one. Every other one we've done, this is our first time, and so hopefully we'll get polished as we go along. But
well, you just got to remember, you got to be the host unless Steve can be on, because that allows you to control the sharing options and things like that.
Well, I was the host, but then I guess he had to take it over to make things happen before he ran out. So
Well, you can have co-host. I don't know if you know that, but co-host is an option.
yeah,
For two people to have control, and then you can only share the screen one at a time. But if you have a co-host and a backup, then that person can sort of look to see if there's anybody in the waiting room. It's kind of like what I do with David on Tuesdays.
yeah. Well, I've been doing that with. I had Eileen and me as co-hosts, but then
Okay.
I
Yeah,
think
and I don't think, and I agree, I don't think the co-host is allowed to share the screen. I think they have all the other capabilities to admit people from the waiting room. They can mute people just like you were doing. But
No, excuse me a minute. I do share the screen as a co-host on Tuesdays during our Zoom session. Yeah. In fact, I'm the one that does the screen sharing on Tuesdays. And I am the co-host.
Okay. Yeah,
So
I'm
it's-
not sure then why you couldn't share your screen, because when you got that message that host had disabled it, if you're a host, you should have been able to share it, but it looked like Steve had to change that option. And I do know Zoom recently changed some of the screen sharing options, so that might have been it.
well, I just need to get a few friends online and practice all this though before.
Well, let me know, Pat, because I have my own license and I can do a demo with you and we can practice if you'd like. So.
Oh, thank you so much. Yeah, that's great. I haven't even practiced it. We had Ashley practicing it and she had to bail on us for tonight and Steve had to leave. It's like
Bad timing.
Well, if you wanna do something next week, we can set up a time and I can set up a demo and we can play
all
with
right.
some options. Okay.
All right, you're on.
Okay. I'll send you an email.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
It was great. See you in a month, I guess. Oh my goodness, I'll miss it next Friday.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Here. Is my cousin Pris? I see Pris's name there. Pris, are you there? Unmute. I'll unmute her.
You can probably unmute everybody, Pat.
Okay. Okay. Unmute. Unmute.
They were there at one point because they were the people that were having the conversation.
Oh. Look in the participants list. It's
Does he still do smoking and all that? What do you do with all that stuff?
Do I hear Pris? Priscilla.
I don't see a Priscilla on the participants list.
You see Pris Britlog?
No.
Yes, I saw.
I don't see her. Okay, I don't know on my list right now. I'm sorry, Pris Brutlag. Yes, she is. Her video's off, but she's unmuted.
How do I do her? Oh, it's a video. Asked to start video.
Well, thanks again, Pat and Eileen. Really enjoyed it. And you all have a great weekend. And Pat, I'll be in touch with you. And
thank you.
Yep.
Thank
All
you.
right, take care.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you. Bye.
Thank you,
Bye,
everybody.
everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone. Thanks for
Bye-bye.
being with us.
It
So,
was great.
Pat,
Thank you.
Pat, when you get
Photography.
together with Michael, include me, all right? Because, I'm teaching classes online now.
Oh,
And
okay.
boy, could I use some help.
All right.
At the Shepherd Center, you're teaching classes just in general, Karen?
I'm teaching my bridge classes online.
Oh,
I
okay.
haven't gotten a message from you, Karen.
That's because it's only on Tuesday, because I'm not ready to do the other two, because I'm still trying to figure out with the beginners how to do
Okay.
stuff that I might be able to do with you
Oh.
guys that are more advanced.
All right, so you're teaching a beginner class on Tuesdays.
Yeah, it's just a review of the Green Book, and there are a lot of people in it that are not necessarily in the Tuesday class, but
Okay.
it's working out okay, but boy, I sure could use some help. You guys have been able to add, for example, all your slides and things. I don't know how to add anything other than a bunch of us talking in a group, and that works.
Okay. Oh, I could do that. Do
Helen comes, so she knows what I'm talking about.
you know how to build a PowerPoint?
Nope.
Oh, I can help you with that.
Good.
My grandson taught me how.
Even I have figured that one out, Karen.
No, I just send them the stuff and let them print it ahead of time.
No, the PowerPoint's fun, and I know how to animate it. I haven't done that yet. I mean, I've done it for presentations I've done, but I didn't animate any of our travel PowerPoints, but you can make pictures pop in and out and do all kinds of fun things.
Oh, you suppose I'd be able to move cards around?
Yeah, probably. I don't know. I don't know.
That would be exciting. Great, thanks.
You bet. Nice to
Sure.
see you all.
We'll be glad
All
to
right.
help you.
Helen and Sandra
Chris?
and
Guess we'll
Chris,
have to talk on the phone.
thank you for being. I think I'm going to sign off.
Okay, I'm going to end the
Bye.
meeting.
Thank you, guys. This was fun.
Bye. Thank
Bye.
you.
I want to go.